Hey guys, welcome to Mr. Smith's Kitchen. Brian, Mr. Smith, as always, kitchen, of course. Um, Today, I thought we would do what is probably going to be one of the more challenging, but not complicated, just long. But what I think is going to be one of the most amazing cheesecakes ever, at least to date. It is a pineapple upside down cheesecake. Um, and before I get into that, if you're new to my channel, first video, welcome. Glad you stopped by. I hope you get something out of this and check out some of the other videos and get something out of those too. If you're returning, thank you. Thank you as always. I never take you guys for granted. When you guys stop by and say hi, take your time out of your busy day to watch my videos, I think that is amazing, and I'm always awestruck by that. If you are new to my channel, don't forget, if you'd be so kind, to hit the subscribe button right down below me. Right next to it is notifications. That way you know when my videos come out, and you can watch them at your leisure if you decide this is something for you. Thumbs up, thumbs down, always appreciated. I don't want to say not necessary anymore, because they are. If we're going to grow our community, and be good neighbors and bake together and cook together and things like that, you need to hit that. That way, the thumbs up or thumbs down, either way, what it does is it allows us to get more views, show up in more people's YouTube feeds that are like-minded like us. So, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, I guess. But it's completely up to you all the same. Comments, love them, live for them, respond to all of them. Only because I don't have a million of them coming through, so it's easy for me to respond to you guys and keep it on a personal level. The only thing I ask, keep it respectful, as always. Think before you type. We don't always have to agree. I mean, if I make something you don't like it, just be, decent about saying, hey, look, I didn't like this. It was really, it was horrible. And tell me why. I mean, whatever. I'm always about comments and conversation, but just be respectful about it. And I think that's it. All right, so anyhow, pineapple cheesecake, upside down cheesecake. It's not just a cheesecake. This is a hybrid cheesecake. It is a regular pineapple upside down cake on the bottom and on the top, and then a pineapple cheesecake in the bottom. And the beauty of this pineapple cheesecake is it's not going to have a crust because it's going in between two cakes, but it could have a crust. And we'll talk about, putting it on a crust, what we could top it with, things like that. But it does have a pineapple flavor, and I mean, you could even do a couple different things with it. So that being said, let me get the camera down here where we can see some things and talk about what we'll need to make this pineapple upside down cheesecake with, and the steps in making the cheesecake part. All right. Give me 1 second. All right. So back down to the counter. If you are new to my channel, this is my entire kitchen pretty much. What's behind you is literally a wall to the outdoors. We work out of a galley kitchen. It can be efficient, but it can be an interesting thing also. So, things we will need to make this with, or at least I'm making it with. You can use a hand mixer and a bowl. I am using a stand mixer and a whisk attachment. So if you're also using a stand mixer, whisk attachment, you also need a scale. And baking scales are just so important, and I know I say that in every video, and I say it in every video because it's important. It keeps consistency, and you want consistency. Most recipes are made with grams and cups, so that way you can be precise with it. We want to be precise. You also need a 9-inch springform pan. Springform meaning that it releases on the sides. All right, and I went ahead and I buttered this one. I put butter all over the sides, bottom. I put a piece of parchment paper down there on the bottom since we don't have a crust, and we're not doing a crust on this one, and then I buttered that. That way I know everything comes apart nice and easy when we're done baking it. The last thing you'll probably need is a roasting pan of some sort. That way we can, because we're going to water bath this, we'll set the pan down inside there like such. Pour an inch of water up, 3/4 to an inch of water up, and we'll cook it low and slow. It's always the way to go, right? The only thing I haven't done yet is put the foil around this, and I'll show you how to do that here in a little bit. So, set those down. As far as ingredients go, I will give you the ingredients in grams along with cups if you're so inclined. And we're just going to go ahead and get started. Next thing I need to do, I need to plug in my my stand mixer. Now, I don't ever plug in any piece of equipment until I'm ready to use it. For those that are new, our youngest is Abby. She's 8 years old. She has Down syndrome, and she really just loves to sneak up behind us while we're doing stuff and flip things on. Well, the last thing I want her to do is come around and flip this on, and all of a sudden somebody gets hurt or product goes everywhere or whatever. So we wait till the very last minute to plug in any tool we use that requires power. All right, so the first thing we're going to need is 4 8-ounce packages of cream cheese. Those are just the standard blocks of cream cheese you buy at the grocery store. We need 4 of them. You want those to be at room temperature. I have had these sitting out all day, literally about 10 hours. Now, that being said, things that you keep at room temperature or you want down to room temperature, you can leave them out all day, but cover them. This would be yellow by now if I would have just let it sit out without having a saran wrap over it. So we're going to go ahead and put those in there, like such. The next thing we're going to need is 1.5 cups or 300 grams of sugar. All right, we're going to put that in there also, just like that. Now, we're going to let this mix. All right, we're going to mix it. We'll start it out a little low, let it get incorporated. That way we don't get sugar flying all over the place. And then we're going to take this up to about a medium high, 4, 6-ish on the mixer. And we're going to let this run for about 5 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and get this started. When I come back, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so we let that run for about 5 minutes. And we're nice and creamy. Now, the reason why we let it run so long, we want a couple things to happen there. And I did stop a couple times. I scraped down my bowl, scraped down the sides of it, and got up underneath there. We're trying to eliminate any potential chunks. All right? We want it to be, light and fluffy, almost like a whipped topping. See? Like that. It's important that you get chunks out now. Sorry. So the thing with that is that's why it's important to make sure your cream cheese is at room temperature. If it's not, you could end up with clumps in it. And they'll look like little pebbles, or sometimes they'll just be lumps. And if you have those, it's not the end of the world. You just keep mixing a little longer is all you have to do. Where I let mine sit out for hours on end throughout the day covered, it's nice and soft and all the way through. All right, so we got our sugar and our cream cheese in there, right? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take 3/4 of a cup of milk and we're going to put that in. All right, we're just going to put the 3/4 in there and we're going to incorporate that with a little bit of vanilla bean. All right, this is 1 teaspoon of vanilla bean. Actually, it's a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla bean paste. Okay, and it's like extract, only it's thicker. It's more potent, not made with alcohol. If you don't have vanilla bean paste, that's okay. You can use vanilla extract. Use 1 teaspoon. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get that in there also. And we're just gonna incorporate this in. We're gonna mix it in, get it all together. Introduce it to the flavor profile and make it happy. Okay, so we got that mixed in. So the next thing we need to add into this is going to be our eggs, and we're going to add these in. I got 4 large eggs, 200 grams. It's 50 grams an egg. We're just going to mix in one at a time. I don't know why I lifted that in. And as you drop your egg in, you're just going to mix it until you don't see any more yellow streaks. Now, what happens if I accidentally put in 2 eggs? It's okay. It's not a big deal. You still just want to follow the steps. Just mix it in until you don't see any more yellow streaks. All right, then we'll add our second egg, and so on and so forth. All right, we got the last egg in there, and we're mixed and incorporated. So what are we going to put in next? The next thing we need to put in here is our sour cream. I've got 1 cup of sour cream, which is 170 grams, if I remember correctly. If not, I'll put it down here where you can see it. I'm pretty sure it's 170 grams. I didn't write it down, but I remembered it from earlier. All right, so we're going to put that in there. Lift this up. And once again, room temperature. And we're going to incorporate that. All right, we got that incorporated, and that sound just reminded me, I forgot to tell you. One of the first things you want to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees. I don't know why I forgot to tell you that, but I did. So before you even start, go ahead and turn your oven on 350 degrees. That way it gets time to warm up. All right, we're going to give it a once through here with the rubber spatula. It's important when you're making any cakes, pies, anything that involves a mixer, that you, even a hand mixer, that you give it a good stir every once in a while, scrape down the sides. You want to make sure everything's getting blended together and you don't have any surprises down at the bottom at the end. That's the most important thing. All right, so we got our sour cream in there. We've got 2 ingredients left to put in. We're going to sift in flour, a 1/4 cup, which is 30 grams, all right, just regular all-purpose flour. So I'll go ahead and get this started on low. And I'll just, well, you can sift it in. You just want to pour it in slowly. You don't want to get one giant clump in there as you're going. All right, we got our flour incorporated. Made sure we didn't have any lumps in there. Now, we're going to turn it down to low. The last thing you're going to need is 1/3 cup of pineapple juice. All right, so how do I get, you got a couple options for pineapple juice. But we're going to pour this in, and while that's mixing in, I'll tell you what your options are. You can either go buy a thing of pineapple juice, or you may like pineapple juice and have some. Or, in this case, my pineapple upside down cake that we're going to make after this is calls for the sliced pineapple rings. What comes in juice? So I just went ahead and used 1/3 cup of the juice from that can, and then I reserved the other 1/2 cup that I'll need for the pineapple upside down cake. I just held on to it, so that way I have some. The rest I held on for the cake. All right, so we got that mixed up good and solid. Everything's smooth. We're gonna take this off right here, and I mean that's it. I mean that's it for the cheesecake part. Now, things you could do to make this just a cheesecake all on its own, if you didn't want to make the pineapple upside down cake to go with this, we would have made a graham cracker crust, which, you know, is just I don't remember the amounts of graham crackers. It's a 1/2 cup of butter, and it's a 1 package of graham crackers plus 2 graham crackers mixed up or put into a food processor, crushed up, or a bag with a rolling pin. Crushed up, 1/2 cup of butter, which would be a stick of butter, and then you would use that. You would mix those together, put it at the bottom of your pan, put it in your oven at 350 degrees for 10 minutes, pull it out and let it cool. And then while it would be cooling, you'd be making this. Your oven would already be at 350 degrees. And then you would just put this on your batter on top of it and put it in the oven for an hour, roughly. I would start checking it at about 50 minutes. But we're not doing that today. We're just making a cheesecake without a crust, so that way we can put it in, sandwich it in between some cakes. All right, so we're down to the final steps here. Let me get some aluminum foil, and then we will wrap our springform pan and put it in the oven. All right, got the springform pan here, piece of foil, and all we got to do now, like I said in last week's video, if you happen to catch it, you want to use the wider foil wrap. You know, you don't want to go with the 12-inch wrap, I think it is. get the 16-inch. And the reason for that is the 12-inch isn't quite wide enough to cover the whole pan, so you have to use 2 sheets, which then will leave you a seam in the middle. I mean, no matter how you cut it, it'll be in the middle. And what can happen is water can leak into that and get up into your cake, and you don't want that. You definitely don't want water in your cake. Now, when you wrap this up and you go to take it out, and I'll show you when we take this out. When you take the foil off after you get it out of the oven, you will see some liquid come out. What that is twofold. And this particular pan has a dredge at the bottom of it, so that way it can catch the steam, because you'll get steam and it'll inevitably find a little bit of a way in there. But we also line this pan with butter. That butter is going to melt, and it's going to go down into your foil more than likely. It won't be much, but it will happen. And I don't want you to freak out and go, oh my God, it got a lot of water up in there. It'll be fine, I promise. All right, we just want to make sure we do the best we can to make sure we don't have water, at least do our best to try not to get water in there. All right, so we got our pan lined. So the next thing we need to do is let me rinse my spatula off here so I don't have to get another spatula out. I'm trying to eliminate dishes. So far today, not only are we making this cheesecake for our 2 different parts of our cake, this cake has 3 steps. First step is making the cheesecake. Second step is making the pineapple upside down cake. Third step is putting it all together. But I have also made 2 blueberry pies. I have made some white chocolate fudge. And I'm about to make a 3rd blueberry pie after this, but I wanted to get this in because this cheesecakes, for as easy as they are a very long process. All right, so we got that in there. We got our parchment paper on the bottom. We've got our foil on there, so all we got left to do is put this in the pan. It's actually a very creamy batter. Now, if you remember last week with the turtle cheesecake, it was a creamy batter also, but it was a little denser. And we had to do the whole step of picking it up and banging it. We don't have to do that with this one. And I know it just because I could feel it in it. So we are going to water bath this. Ooh, that's got really good flavor. I got a little bit on my thumb. It tastes just like pineapples. All right, so we're going to put this in our roasting pan. And like I said, we're going to take some water. And we're going to pour it in the roasting pan. And we want it up about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. It doesn't have to be a bunch. It's not like it evaporates fast. What we're doing is we're helping the cheesecake to not only bake a little slower, but we want it to have a consistent heat is what we're looking for. All right, so what do we got to do next? Well, we're going to put this in the oven, and after we get it in the oven, we're going to bake it for about 55 minutes to an hour. I'm going to tell you 50 minutes to 60 minutes, 50 minutes to an hour. At 50 minutes, take a gander at it. You know, you want to look and see, you want to grab it, you know, make sure you use mitts when you grab it, and you want to shake it a little. It should be firm around the outside and just slightly jiggly in the middle. That's how we know we're done. You can also temp it if you have a thermometer. It should be right a little bit above 180 degrees. 180 to 185 is your temperature range, just like a fruit pie. It should be, you know, fruit pie should be over 190. Cheesecake should be over 180. If it gets to over 180, then you know that you're on the right track and you're going to set. If you happen to see the top is getting a little darker than you want it, you know, a little browner, because cheesecake's brown. You know, they shouldn't burn, but they should get a little light brown. You can always put a piece of foil over the top of it, and that will stop that browning process. So I'm going to go ahead and get this in the oven, set my timer for 50 minutes, and when I come back, we'll talk about what to do after we know it's done. All right, I'll see you here in just a little bit. All right, so let's give it a check. It's actually been in here about an hour and 15 minutes, and we are jiggly now. You may notice there are some spots there that are a little lighter than the rest. I actually tinted over this so that way it wouldn't burn the top. And I was successful, but when I pulled the foil off of it 15 minutes ago, when it still wasn't done to check it, the tent had collapsed and stuck to the top and pulled it off. Fortunately, that's one of the dangers to that. So, what do we do next? All right, but see how, I don't know if you can see that, when it wiggles, it's just jiggly in the center, firm on the sides. That's what we want. You know, we don't want it to be soupy, just jiggly, a little jiggly. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and turn off the oven. And the last minute or so on the timer. And then sit back down here. So, what do we do next? It's like every other cheesecake I've ever made. We are going to leave it sit there in the oven. We're not going to open the door again. We're not going to check it, nothing. We're going to leave that sit in the oven for about 45 minutes. And then after that 45 minutes is up, I'll pull it out and I'll put it on a cooling rack. Where then I'm going to let it cool down to room temperature. And then once that happens, we'll wrap it up and put it in the fridge overnight. And I'm going to come back and show you, the process after we've let it cool down to room temperature to wrapping it, because I think that's important. Even though, you can just always look at last week's turtle video and see it, but I still think that's important. So, why do we do this step? The main reason why we do this step of baking it low and slow, then letting it sit in the oven for 45 minutes to cool down with the oven, and then take it out and let it cool down to room temperature is to keep it from cracking. Now, cooling it too quickly will cause cracking. You'll get a giant crack somewhere in that cheesecake, which is never fun. But if we cool it slowly, we're less likely to crack. Now, what happens if this one cracks? I think we'll be okay, only because, for the same reason why I'm not horribly concerned about the top being a little beat up. We're sandwiching it between two cakes, so nobody will ever see that top. When I come back, we will talk about what to do when we put this in the fridge. All right? Thank you. Bye. Okay, guys, so got her out of the oven, onto a rack, let the cake cool down to room temperature, and all we got left to do is wrap it up and put it in the fridge, and then we can call it a night. So, we got to, and really, it's just as simple as literally wrapping it. But there are one nuance. If you've never wrapped a cheesecake before, this is your first cheesecake video ever, I can show you a couple things. First of all, that's what it looks like when your tent falls for your aluminum foil to keep it from burning. But because of that, it cracked. So, if you ever want a classic example of what cracking looks like and what happens when the top tears, there you go. Now, like I said earlier, I'm not super hard pressed about that, only because it's going to have a top on it that will cover that. So, not a big deal to me. Yeah, and I'm even toying with the idea of cutting this down a little, because it is 3 inches thick, and that's a lot of cheesecake to go with other cake. So, but I'll sleep on it, and we'll talk about that more in the morning as we're making the pineapple cake. No good at this. But anyhow, so you want to, when you wrap a cheesecake, when you cover it for the night to put it in the fridge, you don't want to leave it flat across. Okay, you want to take it and you want to put the wrap down around it. That way, you lessen the chance of getting moisture droplets on your saran wrap. Because the last thing you want is to have this tight flush. It starts to let that moisture come out like it's going to as it cools, and you get those droplets on there. Then you tear this off, and all of a sudden you get water, condensation water, all over your cheesecake, and that's never fun. And much like this is what we did last week, if you watched last week's turtle cheesecake, and it turned out perfect. So I got that in there. Now I'm just going to set this in the fridge. Let's say while you were cooling that down, you went ahead and made the pineapple upside down cake. You're at that next stage. You want to try to do this all in one night. I wouldn't recommend that. Even though this is only 3 steps, there are 3, I don't want to say long steps, but very involved steps. But if you were going to, minimum 4 hours, 6 hours in the fridge. Minimum. Before it's even remotely worthy of fussing with making a dual cake with. But in our case, we're going to leave this out overnight. Or leave it in the fridge overnight. I'm a little whooped. We've done 3 blueberry pies today. The last one's in the oven. Plus this cheesecake. Plus bread. So, I'm tired. And when you're tired, you don't want to start fussing with other things. And bad things happen when you're tired and try to keep going. So I'll put this in the fridge, and even though it'll only be a moment for you, it's going to be an evening for me, so I'll see you in the morning. All right? See you in a little bit. All right, guys. Next day, we let the cheesecake chill overnight in the fridge. I'll show it to you real quick. Oh, maybe if I can get her out of here. All right, and there we are. So, 1 cheesecake. I left the paddle underneath of it when I took it out of the spring form this morning. That way, it'll make it easier to get off of this pan here, this plate here, so we can put it on top of the cake. Now, I have 1 cake about done and out of the oven. That one, I did not put the pineapple and the glaze and the cherries on top of the bottom one. I just simply made the cake itself, which is basically a vanilla cake with a little pineapple juice in it. But together we're going to make the top layer, which is a traditional pineapple upside down cake. So let me get you over to the stove and we'll start making the glaze. That goes in first. You put your brown sugar glaze, and then your pineapples, maraschino cherries, and then you put your cake batter on top of that. But we're in the home stretch, and this is a good, easy cake that you can, there's a couple variations you can do on it. All right, so let me get you over to the stovetop. We'll start talking about ingredients and things like that. And we'll talk about what you need to make this with. And yeah, so let me get you over there. All right, so to make this pineapple upside down cake, to put on our cheesecake, first thing you'll need is an ingredients list and a recipe, which I have one. The original recipe I got from joyabaking.com. Stephanie Jaworski, she also has a YouTube channel that's of the same name, and she's amazing. You can learn so much from her. She has great recipes, and a lot of them allow you the ability to experiment and learn a little bit. But if you get a chance, check her out, hands down. And I've done some adjustments to this, not many. I mean, there's only so many ways to make a pineapple upside down cake. But anyhow, first thing you will need is a saucepan, and as always, a scale, no different than the cheesecake. And we're going to take 4 tablespoons of butter, 55 grams, and we're going to put it into that. We're going to add 3/4 cup of light brown sugar. All right, and that is 150 grams. All right, now that would be packed brown sugar if you don't have a scale, but I recommend, I mean, really, you can use a scale for anything and everything. And all we're going to do is we're going to melt this and bring it till it starts bubbling. All right. While you're waiting on this to start, by the way, might I recommend when you get use a saucepan, use one that's got a heavier bottom to it. You don't want it to, or just keep your heat on a little lower. That way you don't scorch the bottom. Right now you want to turn your oven on 350 degrees, and you want to go ahead and get your 9-inch cake pan buttered up, so that way nothing sticks to it, or at least you lessen the chance of things sticking to it. And get those 2 things done, hit up here, and just start melting your butter and brown sugar. All right, so we are at a constant bubble, not a boil, but a bubble. You'll start to see little air bubbles pop up in here, and that's what you want. So now we're just going to take this and we're going to pour it in the bottom of our pie pan here. You know, it's important that you butter this pie pan, because if you don't, this will stick to the bottom of your pie pan. And we're essentially making a caramel sauce. That's, I mean, as it sits here, it's going to start to harden, which is okay. I mean, that's what we want it to do. So the next thing we're going to do is take those pineapples that I was talking about, that we got the juice from, for the cake, or for the cheesecake, and then we'll have some in this cake too. And we're simply going to lay these in here. You know, and you may not get the entire can in here, but that's okay, because you can eat what you don't get in the pie pan. All right, we're gonna squeeze them as close together as we can. All right, we were able to get 7 in there. That's a good enough start. And then the next thing we want to put on there, now, and these are optional, but I think they're a lot of fun and good, and that's maraschino cherries. And you can just place those in the center of the pineapples, or, you know, wherever you like, really. Or leave them off if you don't like maraschino cherries. Alright, got our maraschino cherries in there, so now we are halfway home, so to speak. So, all we're going to do now, set this to the side. But right there is the base of our pan. And we can go ahead and start getting our batter made. Let me get this cleaned up. When I come back, we'll start making our batter. Okay, got everything set up. And in the process, the bottom layer came out, which is always nice. So we're letting it cool at the moment, right there. Just your standard vanilla cake with pineapple juice in it. And it actually has some of the pulp in it too, which is awesome, because that really adds to the flavor. But anyhow, so stand mixer, or you can use a hand mixer and a bowl. I'm going to use my stand mixer. We're actually going to use both today. We're going to start with the stand mixer and work our way into the hand mixer after that. In case I didn't mention it, like always, all your dairy, your eggs, milk, should all be, your butter should all be room temperature. In case I forget to mention it as we go. So, and when you're putting your, so we separated our eggs, okay? I got whites in one container, yellows in another container. The yolks in one, whites in the other. Do that while they're cold. It makes it so much easier to separate. Little trick there. So, first thing we need to do is take a half a cup or 113 grams of butter, 1 stick of butter. We're going to throw that in. All right. To that, we're going to add 1 cup, 1 cup, 200 grams of just regular white granulated sugar. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix this on medium high-ish for about 2 to 3 minutes. And we're just going to cream it and get it, you know, like the consistency of mashed potatoes, like a good mashed potato is what we're looking to do. All right, so we'll get that creamed and then move on to the next set of ingredients. All right, so we got that mixed. So the next thing we need to do is add our eggs, or just our egg yolks, 2 egg yolks. And we're using large eggs, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. Get those in there. And we're going to throw in a teaspoon, 4 grams of vanilla. All right, we're going to let that mix up just till it's good and blended in. Okay, so we got our eggs in there and our vanilla. They're mixed up nicely. Now, I know haven't mentioned it, at least in this video, I don't think. But make sure you scrape down your bowl as often as possible. You want to, you know, in between every step, if possible, mix, scrape, make sure everything's getting blended together. All right, so we got that going. So, now that we've got that done, all we have to do is put some dry goods together next. All right, so we're gonna move that to the side as best as possible, and we're gonna grab our scale real quick. Scale, and in our dry bowl here, I've already got our flour, which is 190 grams, about 1.5 cups of flour mixed in there, and to that we're going to add some baking powder and salt. So our baking powder is 2 teaspoons, which is 8 grams. This is where the scale comes in handy. I mean, really, because then I don't have to fuss with dirtying up a bunch of different dishes, because I can use this exact same spoon. I guess I could have done it the same way, but at least I know I'm getting exactly 8 grams in there, which is nice. I got that. Then we'll need our salt. Get the lid back on that so I don't spill it. Now I'm using a kosher salt. You can use table salt if that's what you like, or you have on hand. But if you get kosher salt and you can't find the fine grain kosher salt, and you have to get the coarse, mash it up. I literally just pour it in the jar here, and I take my pestle goes my pestle and mortar, and I just grind it up right here in the jar. Now, if you try that method, don't sit there and hammer it; you'll break your glass. But we got our baking powder in there. We need a 1/4 teaspoon or 1 gram of salt, which isn't a lot by any means. Right there. And you don't want to, if you leave your salt coarse, you run the risk of the salt not dissipating into your cake, and you'll inevitably have somebody that will get a bite of salt, and it won't be you. I guarantee it. It's never been me. When it used to happen to me all the time, it was always Chris, and she would say, like, honey, I taste salt. So I started grinding up my salt. That way I knew it would disperse easier. All right, so we got our dry mix. It's literally 3 ingredients. This is one of the easiest cakes in the world. So the next thing we have to do is you need 1/2 cup of milk. All right, and this is where I varied from the original recipe. This isn't all milk. I poured it to halfway between a 1/4, and I left 1/8 of the milk off. All right, so it's not really 1/2 cup of milk, and I filled that 1/8 of a cup ish, right, with pineapple juice. That's what I did with the other pineapple juice, and I did the same thing in that one over there. That way, I could really get that pineapple flavor in there. So what we're going to do is, we're going to do this in 3 stages. I am going to put in 1/3 of the dry goods, which are our dry mix. And I really don't know what I did with my 1 measuring cup. That's all right. We'll use this one. You can never have too many measuring cups. So I'm going to take, and this is a thick batter already. It's like mashed potatoes, like a dense mashed potato at the moment. And that's okay. Don't freak. It all works out in the end. I'm going to take 1/3 of this, about a cup, and I'm going to put it in there. And then I'm going to mix this on low. We got that incorporated. Now we're going to pour in half our milk, half-ish. And then we'll mix that up. And we'll take our spatula, scrape down our sides real quick. Make sure we're in good shape there. A little bit more of our dry mix. And then I'll mix this up, add in the rest of the milk, and then the rest of the dry mix. All right, so we got that all mixed up, and we're pretty much done with the cake portion. Now, if you remember earlier, I said to separate your yolk and your whites from your from each other. You know, there's a reason for that, because we're still going to use them. We're just done with this portion. So what we're going to do is, as soon as I get straightened up here, is we're going to whip these into essentially a non-sweetened whipped cream. All right. Let me get some things rearranged, and then we will work on that. All right. Be right back. Okay, so got the mixer out of the way. Now we're going to use the hand mixer. So what do we need to do with it to make? Why are we making the egg whites into a whipped cream? Yeah, we are doing that because we're going to fold it in, and it helps make our cake a little fluffier, a little lighter, gives it a better texture. Do you have to do this? No, you didn't have to separate your eggs. You could have just thrown 2 eggs in there and beat it with your mixer, and you would have been just fine. But this it gives it a better taste. I think a better texture, a better feeling in your mouth, so to speak. To these 2 egg whites, we are going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. Now, if you cannot find cream of tartar in your store, that's okay. You can use a 1/4 teaspoon of lemon juice. Does the same thing. Cream of tartar keeps you from over whipping your egg whites. Because you could easily over whip this and turn it into basically a block. They get really hard. This won't let you go past it. And we're just going to take it and we're going to whip this into basically a whipped topping. Okay, we got that beaten up. And as I was sitting here doing this, it hit me. I told you like Cool Whip or whipped cream. And I mean, yeah, kind of, but you're basically making a meringue. Whipped topping is made with heavy cream, and meringues are made with egg whites. But you're just looking to get it to where, well, these are, see how that's not falling, or see how that's not falling, it's just kind of staying there. That's stiff peaks. And like I said, if you don't put the cream of tartar in there, you can still achieve this goal, but if you're not paying attention, you can make those the eggs really hard and firm, and then they don't blend so well. So, excuse me. What we're going to do next is we'll give this one more good mix. I mean, you can see, like, right now, that's really dense. I mean, it's like cookie dough dense. It's, very stiff, very hard. We need to loosen that up. And that's what the whipped topping's for, or the meringue is for. Now, we're not going to put this all in there at once, because what it would do if we did would be to deflate the whipped top or the meringue and make this a little runny. So we're going to do this in 3 stages. We'll put it in, put the first third in, and then we'll just fold it in. All right, which is not hard to do. You're literally just folding it on top of itself and pushing it in. If you can, here, I'll just like this, over and through. All right, circle and through. And then that way you get it, it incorporated, and we don't lose any of that air. Now this first third we will. We'll lose a little bit of it, but it's also loosening that, I don't know if you can see that, but it's also loosening that batter up. Okay, so we got this all whipped up. Went and got our pie pan. And I mean, I don't know if you can, but see how much creamier that is now? Yeah, it's still thick. It's a dense cake, I mean, as far as the batter goes. But, it's just so much creamier and smooth now than it was. So, we'll go ahead and get this in here. All right, got that in there. Set that off to the side. Grab our offset spatula. Scrape this bad boy clean. Then we just got to spread her out even. All right, we got it nice and even. Spread out good. So, we'll get this in the oven real quick. And then we'll talk about time and what to look for. Put that in the oven. All right, got that in the oven, and that is it. I mean, as far as making just a normal standard pineapple upside down cake, we just made one. You could eat that all on your own. So essentially, we've made 2 cakes so far in one. We made our pineapple cheesecake yesterday, which sat in the fridge and cooled off. And like I said, if you don't have anything else going on that day, if you do the cheesecake early enough, you can let it set in the fridge, cool down. But I mean, you're looking at about a 6-hour process, and then make your pineapple upside down cake. Now, you could make one cake and cut it lengthwise in half and just use those in between them, but I didn't want to do that. I'm a glutton for, big cakes. But cooking wise or baking wise, we have our oven was set at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is I think 180 degrees Celsius. We are going to bake it in my oven. I found with this last one about 40 minutes, but it could be 35 to 45 minutes, and you want to check it. I'd start checking it at about 30-35 minute range, and just like any other cake, you should be able to touch the center of it, and it should be spongy. A toothpick going through the center of it, toothpick should come out clean, just clean when it comes out. No wet, no nothing like that. Maybe a little crumb, but that's it. And it will pull away from the edges a little bit, just a little bit. So when I come back, we'll pull this out and we'll talk about what we're going to do next. All right, see you in just a minute. Okay, so we're done. Cake is done. Pull it out to cool, turn the timer off. I actually had to bake it a couple minutes longer than I thought I was needing to. The last one was 45 minutes, and I thought it was a little overbaked, but so I put this one down for 30 minutes, and it ended up being 40 minutes before it was done. So we pulled it out. Now, if you look, see how I can push on that? It's still warm, but it bounces like a cake should be. If that wasn't done, your hand would go into it and you'd burn your hand. You can also take a toothpick and put it right down in there. All right, now you want to watch, because you got that pineapple and everything down at the bottom. You don't want to go all the way down, or you'll get the syrup on it. But if you look, see how it's not wet. Yes, there is crumbs on it, but crumbs are okay. All right, and here's why. So if you've got some crumbs on it like that and they're moist, that's okay. You just don't want batter. Reason being is, just because we pulled that out of our 350 degree oven, that doesn't mean it's automatically going right down to, in this case, 72 degrees. It's still at 350 degrees on the inside, which means it's still cooking, and it will keep cooking until it cools down to a certain temperature, then it'll stop. So if it's not quite done, and by quite done, I mean it's still, when you put your toothpick in it, it just has those little moist crumbs on it. It's okay. They won't be moist crumbs in about 10 minutes. And like I said, we touch the top and it's springy. That's how we know it's done. So we're going to let this rest for 10 minutes, and then when I come back, we'll take it out of the pan and see how things went. All right, see you in a second. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes, and we're going to try to remove this. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to run our offset spatula. If you don't have an offset spatula, that's fine. You can use a knife, whatever you have available, a regular spatula, whatever you have. That way we know at least the sides are loose, right? All right, so we got sides are good. That actually was very clean. I'm digging it. So this is always kind of like the nerve-wracking part because you just don't know. I mean, the whole pie may stick to the bottom of it. So now we're going to flip it over. And hopefully we come off clean. Nope. That's all right, though. All right, so you see we're missing a couple. So what do? How do we fix that? It's easy. All we got to do is grab a spatula, something. We'll pick this one up. We'll put it right back where it belongs. Right like that. That one's back on there. Nobody's ever going to be worse the wiser. The funny thing is I can feel it sticking. That's all right. Yeah. Remember, we're not professionals. You know, even though I have started selling pies and cakes, I'm not a professional. And a lot of times, it's not doing it right the first time. Sometimes the knowledge is in how to fix it when it happens. And that's the important thing, you know, is how do I fix this when it happens? All right, so we got it fixed. We are there. We are rocking it. Look at that. Now nobody is worse the wiser, so to speak. So what I'm going to do is, let me bring it to you real quick. I'll show it to you. Right there we are. I mean, you can see a little bit of damage there on the side, but that's all right. That's all right. We're going to take this, and now I have already sprayed this rack down with vegetable spray, and I'm going to take this off of here so that way we can maybe I should have left it on the pan, I guess, but or on the plate, but we're just going to leave it on that rack right there to cool. All right, that way when it's fully cool, the only thing we have left to do, build our cake. That's it. So, when I come back, we'll build our cake and try a slice. Alright, see you after a little bit. Finally, everything's cool, cold, or how it's supposed to be. We have successfully made 3 cakes, although you didn't get to see me make the bottom layer, but it's essentially the top layer without the pineapples and maraschino cherries and glaze. But now we're down to putting it together. But it should just be an easy thing to do. But I'm here to tell you, in some ways, nothing has been easy about this. So let's come down here so we can see all 3 pieces. There we are. All right, we got our bottom. I cut the top off to make it even. All right, and all I did was just take my knife and follow the edge ring around. Now, I will say, being the first time I've made this, I now know the bottom cake, because that turned out just a little firm. Not bad. Definitely had a little firm. I'm going to back it off by 5 minutes. So this may only go 30 minutes. The recipe is designed to have all that on top of it. But I will tell you, from eating the top, it's spot on, beautifully just tender and delicious. So now we got to get our cheesecake. Hopefully not completely screw this up on top of there without getting too much of a headache going here, which I was afraid this was going to happen, but we will get it out somehow. There we go. Sliding that out. Now, I remember reading at the beginning of the recipes that, because I actually had read a couple, 2, 3 different recipes, and some people just made a normal cheesecake, pineapple cheesecake, and then put that on top of it, and it had a crust, and, you know, it looked kind of like a safe deal. I didn't want a safe deal. I wanted to say, just do something incredibly crazy. So, we got that on there like such. Right, we were good there. Let me wipe my hands off. Now remember, wash your hands, you know, before you go touching the food. Now, if it was just me eating this, you know, I'd probably just jumped right in and done it. But we want to make sure our hands are washed because other people are going to be eating this. All right, and then we just need to take our top and put it on there like such. And this, my friend, is our cheesecake, pineapple cheesecake, pineapple upside down cheesecake. Now, that being said, what I would normally do, and I still might, see how, that thing is ridiculous. See how it's kind of hanging over the edge there? Some of that is just due to the fact that there's weight on top of it. So what I will probably do, matter of fact I will do it, is just go ahead and run my knife around the edge here to get that off of there. And if you're wondering how I'm going to smooth that out, I'll show you that too. Because you can literally take your knife and smooth that out. Just like such. So if you ever have a cheesecake that's, you know, not really clean on the sides, the easiest way to fix that, matter of fact, here, I'll show you how to fix that real quick. Let me drain the water out of there. You take your knife or your spatula, either one. You get it nice and warm with just hot water coming out of your tap. And then that cheesecake is really cold. So when the hot knife hits it, it'll smooth it out. And then nobody will ever know that there was damage done to it. And that, my friends, is how you smooth out the side. Guess who taught me that? Nobody. I learned it on my own. Oh, knife got cold again. Alright, well anyhow, I'm going to quit playing around with this. And we're going to try a slice of this. Hold on just one second while I go get something to put my my piece on before we cut. Okay, I'm back. You got a plate so I can put my piece on there with. Good God, this thing is just massive. I mean, really. Next time I decide to do a 3-layer cake, I'm going to stop myself. But at the same time, with this, I will probably not make the cheesecake as dense here, as tall. That way I don't have to fuss with trying to get that all apart, or trying to, because that's, I think, a little tall. But I tell you what, this cake was fun to make all the same. Oh. You got pineapple pulling on me. Tell you what I'm going to do. Sneak in here and grab the rest of that pineapple. That should have came with me. Alright. Well, there is our cake. Granted, the center of it was kind of wonky. And, you know, you could say, well, Brian, that's not very pretty. And you're right, it's not. But what did we do? All right, let's think about this for a second. Oh, I can tell you that cheesecake tastes amazing. All right. Let's get an official bite here of everything. Pineapple and cream cheese and cake. Yeah. For all its monstrosity, that is the bomb. Yep, that is quite amazing. I don't know if anybody still says the bomb anymore, but it is. That cake in itself, both top and bottom, tender, Just, oh, I, I don't even know how to describe it. That's how good it is. Oh, amazing. Absolutely. I mean, just amazing. Like I said, next time I make this, I may not make it so tall, but I mean, for being a 10-inch cake, that would probably rival the Good Humor strawberry cake we made. That, my friends, is a work of art. Definitely not for somebody who is dieting by any means. And the first piece, obviously, always a struggle. So, I think we did very well. I'm definitely going to keep this recipe. Maybe even make it throughout the summer. I love pineapple upside down cake. I love pineapple. I love cream. I love cheesecake. There's nothing about this I personally don't like. If you're brave enough, give this a try. It is a bit of work. That's no lie. But well worth it, because that tastes fantastic. I mean, just fantastic. So, let me know if you do try this. Hands down. You make this, you'll make friends all over the neighborhood. I guarantee it. They'll be like, holy cow, that person, not only are they amazing, maybe a glutton for punishment, but that is one of the best cheesecakes. I guarantee you nobody's ever had a pineapple upside down cheesecake in my neighborhood. I'm about to go make some friends. So, until next week, when I don't know what we're going to cook or bake, but I do know for certain we got to build some stuff for the garden at any rate. So that way, because we only got about another 3 weeks and we'll be planting all the plants I got down in the basement so we can start our tomatoes and peppers and all that good stuff. But anyhow, next week, don't know what we're doing for dinner yet. Don't know what crazy cake we're going to make. We may just stick with making caramel sauce next week. So, until next week, I love you. I love you very much, and I do mean that from the bottom of my heart. Give this a try. If you've got a little bit of free time, or a lot of free time, give this a try. You won't be disappointed. The taste is absolutely amazing. Alright, tell somebody else you love them. You love them very much. I'm telling you, because it makes me feel good to tell you. It's going to make you feel good to tell them. And anymore, especially nowadays, people need to hear that. We need to spread that word a lot more. So, next week, I'll talk to you then for over dinner. All right? Love you. Bye.